What's up, nerds? Plugged In is back and better than ever. I'm your host, Vanessa, along with Molly and Christian. Today we're going to be talking about Uncharted, Stranger Things Season 4 news, and so much more. Let's roll the intro. So let's start off with something that we haven't really gotten to see in a long time. Stranger Things. It's been a few years.
It's been a while.
Yeah, so what do you guys think about the new Season 4 news that we just got?
I'm excited. I mean, it's kind of sad that they released that it's going to be ending. I mean, obviously it's not ending this season, it's ending next season. I do like that it's coming out in 2 volumes because there's so much happening. Like, they released 4 different trailers that are all 4 completely different things, and I'm very excited.
I think there's a lot going on in Season 4 and then, of course, in Season 5. And so I think it will come to a satisfactory ending where they're not going to draw things out too much. That, how a lot of shows kind of add too many unnecessary seasons to the end. I think it's nice that they have a definitive ending that they're planning on working towards, and then once they reach it, they're done, and then they can move forward with other projects.
I have to agree. I mean, we've been waiting for, I don't even know how many years at this point, for another season since Season 3 dropped. So it's going to be kind of weird to see the characters all back again, even with all the new additions that we've seen over the past couple months that they've been adding.
Right.
Yeah, again, with it being in 2 different volumes, there's so much going on. Obviously, we know that Hopper's in Russia, which is great, but that's just one thing. 11 is at a new school, there's this weird house that they're going into, and then there's clearly some backstory with some stuff with 11. There's one thing that's kind of seeming like an 11 origin story, maybe with another siblings that she had. I didn't like that plot point in Season 2. That's why I stopped watching Season 2 and I never finished it. But I also like that Dustin and Steve and all them are together, and then 11 is with the Byers family, but I don't know how they're going to connect. I don't know. It's going to be weird.
Because they're the whole way in California,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
So it's interesting. I'm assuming they're going to all come together and maybe either take a trip to Russia or take a trip to the Upside Down.
Do you think that maybe the first volume will be all of their separate stories, and then volume 2 might just be all of them back together again?
I could see that. How many episodes are in each?
I am not
There's
sure.
5 in Volume 1 and 4 in Volume 2, I believe.
I could see them doing that. Maybe having each episode focus on a specific thing, depending on what the runtime is. If each episode is 45 minutes, each one could focus on, here's the Byers in California, here's this weird house that they're investigating for who knows what reason.
Yeah.
Here's Russia, here's 11 origin story, and then we go into them connecting. Because 11 talks about coming home for spring break and being able to see the guy whose name I'm completely blanking on. Mike, her boyfriend. They're planning on seeing each other clearly, and it's going to be
the best spring break ever.
Famous last words.
Yeah. So what do you think about Volume 1, Volume 2 only releasing about 2 months apart? Because correct me if I'm wrong, I think May 27th is when Volume 1 is releasing, and then Volume 2 is releasing in July.
I'm actually okay with that because it's not that big of a chunk where I'm going to be really upset, oh my gosh, I need to know what happens. It's just over a month, so I can deal with that, I think. I think that's very generous on their part because they could have spaced it out a lot longer and I would have been really annoyed.
Well, one of the things that Netflix does is they just they're going to put all of the episodes, that's what they did with Season 3, so that way you can just binge it in one go.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that waiting game that you do with the Disney Plus shows or an HBO show where you're waiting each week. You get to watch 5 episodes, and then you don't just get to be all right, when's Season 5 coming out? You still have that waiting game and expecting what's going to come next. I kind of like it.
I think I'm going to have to agree. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Season 3. I didn't really like the ending. I kind of skimmed through it, but I think I am more excited for Season 4 and whatever they're going to bring in Season 5, which brings me to my next point. What do you think the plot's going to be besides, them all in their separate locations?
I have no idea. It's all just, it's weird. There's nothing, they haven't revealed anything about what's going on. I liked Season 3, I didn't like Season 2, and I liked how Season 3 ended, but I thought that was a completely fitting end. I have no idea what's going to happen next.
I mean, besides the fact that they've been teasing the whole Hopper being in Russia thing, and then 11 living in California with the Byers, they haven't really given us a lot. The trailers have been very minimal, and they show like cool visuals and like kind of giving like a little hint on what's going on, but they haven't given us enough to really have a grasp of what is actually going to be in like the meat of season 4. And so I think there's going to be a lot that we don't currently know about that will end up popping up in this season. I think right now their goal is just to get our attention once again, because it's been like 3 years since season 3.
Right, yeah.
I mean, are they going to do like a time skip or something? I mean, because we know 11's at another school. The thing is, these kids are going to look so much older than they were back then, which is like, this seems to be a recurring problem on Stranger Things with how long the seasons take to come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what, it's still going to be, I still think it's going to be good, and we kind of have to wait to see what happens, but I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm excited to see everyone back. I love Robin. I'm so glad that she's coming back. I like the dynamic that everyone has together, so overall I think it's going to be fine.
I think it's also fun to see the characters pared down a little bit so you can develop their relationships and just kind of get like different dynamics between different characters. I think that's always fun. Like in season 3, I was a big fan of how like Dustin split off from his normal group and then went with like Steve and Robin, and they had like their own little squad. So I think it's just interesting to see different people interacting with people you wouldn't necessarily think they would interact with.
Right.
So I know we're all excited for this, so I'm going to veer into something I'm very excited for, which is Elden Ring, which comes out tomorrow if you're in the US. And I just want to know, do you guys know anything about Elden Ring?
I know that Dark Souls exists. It is a game, and it exists, and I have never played it, and that is the extent of my knowledge. I watched the Elden Ring trailers and immediately was sold. Like, it looked, I know that it's like an Xbox game and a PlayStation game, and I'm loyal to the Switch, but it looks so good.
Oh, yeah.
Visually, the trailers are fantastic, and then when you show the actual gameplay, it looks just as good as the trailer, which is very rare. I think graphically it's going to be great. It's so much like an open world game. I think like games like Breath of the Wild really have evolved and made this whole open world genre so much better. It looks so good. I'm very excited.
Yeah, for me, I've played Dark Souls 3, I think. I played one of them, and I only played through like a very little bit of it because it was pretty difficult.
It's a pretty dense and difficult game from experience.
Yeah. But like from what I played with it, I thought it was really neat. Just the amount of like openness there was, and that's not even like an open world game. So like,
Oh yeah.
just
I mean,
Elden Ring, I don't know, like if it's Dark Souls but open world, like there's a lot that you
it's
can
Dark
do
Souls,
with
but with
that.
a lot more content. Like this has, I don't even remember how many hours, but it's a lot.
I think somebody said 90 hours.
It was around that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen gameplay of it already from everyone who's either switched their location on Xbox or not PlayStation. PlayStation you can't. On PC to New Zealand to play it early, and the gameplay looks phenomenal. Like all the different bosses look as great as they do in the trailer, and all the different like weapons and armor you can get. Plus, I believe there is about 10 customizable classes, but you can completely like change into what you want to be. So, have any of you seen the reviews for this game?
I have not heard much other than that it's getting really good reviews.
Yeah.
It is getting phenomenal reviews. I haven't seen less than a 9 out of a 10 on a 10 scale, or below like a 4.5 on a 5 scale. Like this game is getting phenomenal reviews. IGN, I know, gave it a 10. Metacritic, it was at a 97, I think, last time I checked for Xbox, and like 94 for like PlayStation and stuff like that. I think this game, like I said before, Game of the Year contender. What are your thoughts?
I mean, with a game that's 90 hours and has 10 out of 10 reviews on however many websites, IGN especially, which I feel like they never give 10 out of 10 reviews, easily a Game of the Year contender. I don't even know I don't know what else it's going to follow up with if it's that good.
True. I mean, I know for Horizon's Forbidden West has been getting like great reviews as well, but from what I've seen online, it's already being overshadowed by Elden Ring, and the game isn't fully even released yet. I think this game's gonna be really good. So, taking another kind of a turn back to television, the Lord of the Rings television show on Amazon Prime. They released a trailer. I don't know much about Lord of the Rings, so Christian, I'm gonna let you take this one away.
I'll take the lead on this. Yeah, so they released a trailer, and the synopsis of this show is that it's basically like a prequel. And I know like Lord of the Rings was like the main trilogy, and then there was the prequel trilogy, which was the Hobbit movies. And then so now this TV show is gonna be a prequel, but start even further back from the Hobbit.
Wow.
And it's kind of gonna be like the beginning of how the rings were constructed, and like they were dispersed out to like the humans, the elves, the dwarves, and the Dark Lord Sauron. So I think it'll just be interesting to get like sort of the background of how Lord of the Rings came to be, and like I think we're gonna learn a lot more about the rings themselves and what their powers are and how they were used. Because like once you get into the Lord of the Rings series, it's really just the one ring to rule them all. So I think seeing a bunch of the different rings will be really neat. And yeah, so it takes place before most, if not, well, yeah, most of the characters from like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, most of those characters aren't even born yet. So there's a handful. Like I think Elrond, the elf, is going to be in the show, but he's going to be recast as, like for a younger person. Galadriel, I think she might be in the show. And then Sauron himself is supposed to make an appearance in the show. Have no idea who's casted as him, but
I think the only two things that I know that I think are kind of interesting, one of which is that Amazon signed so that way they've confirmed that there will be 5 seasons, which I think is kind of interesting because all we have is a teaser trailer that was about a minute. So the fact that they've already signed on for 5 seasons is pretty interesting. The other thing, and I learned this today, is that in their agreement to make the show, they agreed that they will not be straying from the actual Lord of the Rings canon. Like the books canon, they are not going to be flourishing and adding things like they did with like Game of Thrones or with like Harry Potter. They have to stick to the J.R.R. Tolkien canon, which I think is really interesting, and especially for people who are big Lord of the Rings fans, that's huge, because then that means that they're not just going to be adding things that people aren't going to be a fan of. It's what's written down.
And I think the movies were such like a big cinematic experience when they came out, and they're like very nostalgic for a lot of people. And so like getting this TV show, I think will be a really nice way to bring back some of the old fans, but also to bring some new fans to the franchise. Just people that didn't necessarily grow up with the movies and whatnot.
So I think it's going to be more like how Lightyear is bringing Toy Story plus, like Toy Story old fans plus new fans. So kind of another resurgence of that, but for Lord of the Rings fans.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of TV shows and movies are doing that here of late, just trying to like play off of the nostalgia of some old iconic movies and shows, but like bringing them back into the forefront with some new content.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of nervous when I had heard that they were making a show because it felt kind of like a money grab. I haven't really watched the Lord of the Rings movies since I was like 5 with my dad, but that is something that I know that he and I will be talking about, and I'll be excited to watch it as it comes out. I know the third one, Return of the King, got an Oscar for Best Picture, so like a lot of people love those movies, and it has such a great like nostalgic feel with a lot of nerdy fans, so I hope that the show's gonna be really good.
How do you feel about it releasing in a TV show format as opposed to like another movie?
I think it's fine. They have the 6 movies with the Hobbit trilogy, which I know Lord of the Rings fans are kind of like meh about, and then the actual Lord of the Rings movies. I mean, Star Wars has TV shows, and those are going great. Marvel has TV shows, and those are great. It was kind of only a matter of time before they released a show and not another movie.
I agree. I think a lot of content nowadays is kind of moving towards that TV show format. And I think in a lot of ways that that's a good thing, because even though you're missing out on like the theatrical experience, you're getting more content, because if they had to squeeze it all into like one movie or like even a couple movies, there's still a lot that you're going to miss out on that they're going to have to cut from the script. And so I think by doing it in a TV show format, they can take a lot more creative liberty and make a more complete story.
I think if they're going to go straight from the source material, I think it, in my opinion, is the best way to go through a TV show, because movies, you have to condense that so much. I think as someone who has never fully watched a Lord of the Rings or Hobbit movie, that this might actually get me into it.
And the movies themselves are already so long in the first place. Like the first 2 are, I think, 3 hours, and then I think the second one or the third one is about 4 hours, and then the extended cut adds an extra hour to those. So the extended cut of Return of the King is like 5 hours, which is great, obviously, for like that reason. But no one wants to sit in a movie theater for 5 hours. Watching Endgame for 3 hours was already a struggle. And you're right, like, you can add so much more to a TV show, even if it's got an hour of a runtime, depending on how long the season is. Even if the season is 5 episodes, it's an hour long, that's still a 5-hour season, and there's 5 seasons. No matter what, it's way more content than you would have gotten with another trilogy.
So as a longtime fan, I can say you're pretty excited, Christian.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty excited.
And Molly, as a somewhat of a fan.
It's been a while. I'm excited.
And so, kind of moving back into movie territory once again, Uncharted. I saw it recently. Christian, I know you saw it recently. Molly, have you
did.
seen it?
I know absolutely nothing about Uncharted.
I have played, I think, the third one, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just kind of got it as a hand-me-down one time from my brother, so I was like, all right, yeah, I'll give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And I played it, and I was like, oh, this is actually, like, awesome. Like, I didn't think I would be into it necessarily, but it was exactly the type of game that I like playing. I'm a puzzle game kind of guy.
Got it.
So I like solving puzzles and, like, some action and stuff like that. And that's really what it is. Like, it's a treasure hunt.
Yeah, and so what I've noticed online is that there's so much pressure for this movie to be the first, great video game movie, because we've had Mortal Kombat and stuff like that in the past, and those obviously haven't been great. And so it overperformed what it was expected to be in the box office, earning like 51 million in its first weekend.
I think that has a lot to do with Tom Holland playing the lead role.
Probably.
You might be right about that. I know that's one reason I went to see it.
Right.
As a big Tom Holland fan since Civil War. I mean, what do you think of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake?
Ooh, I really enjoyed him in the role, but I did feel like he was basically playing Peter Parker again.
Oh.
But I love Peter Parker, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. But I can see like people who might be longtime fans of the game series might have had an issue with that.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. There's also a big cameo in it for the fans of the games. Nolan North, the voice actor of Nathan Drake himself in the games, makes an appearance on the beach scene where I believe Chloe and Nathan Drake both wash up. What did you think about that? Did you know it was him?
Well, okay, so the funny thing is I saw that interaction play out and I was like, they literally stopped the plot of the movie for them to talk to this random guy on the beach. He has to be important.
Yeah.
But I didn't pick up on the fact that it was the voice actor. But I think that's really funny and really cool that he was in it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree. And so we all know there's going to be a sequel. They teased it, and they teased it at the end and in the post-credit scene. What do you think we're going to get in a sequel?
I hope we get a lot of, I think his name was Sam, the brother. Mm-hmm. I hope we get more of him because I was really intrigued about their like early beginning story, like with like the younger actors playing them at the very beginning of the movie. And I wanted to see more of like them working together as like not necessarily a crime duo, but like little
basically
treasure hunter buddies. And so, like I wanted to see more of their interaction, and I was really hoping to find that he would find Sam at the end of the movie, and then he didn't. So I was like, that's a little bit of a bummer.
I feel like that's going to be probably the main thing in the next movie, besides the fact we're going to see more Mark Wahlberg, who I'm not the biggest fan of his acting, but I will admit he did a very good job in the movie. I'm kind of hoping that the next movie brings Nathan Drake hardens him into the character that we see in the games, because he seemed, like you said, like a Peter Parker. He seemed very soft. Well,
and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is also meant to be like a younger version of him.
I believe so.
Whereas
yes.
him in the games is like a little bit older. So I think maybe as Tom Holland grows as an actor, and if the movies keep progressing and they turn it into like a whole series, I think you might start to see like a older, more mature version that people are used to from the video games.
Yeah. So I personally, because I knew how Nathan Drake was in the games, it really threw me off. Like how like not nice, but like he was like too sweet. Like especially with Chloe.
Yeah.
Getting knocked out in the sand because he was too trusting. I'm kind of hoping that in the future that they harden him a little bit. And then, so I think that's all we have for today. So what do you guys think about upcoming films? Like The Batman's coming out very, very soon, March 4th. And we got Turning Red, March 11th. Morbius, April 1st. Fantastic Beasts, April 15th. Doctor Strange, May 6th. And Top Gun Maverick on May 27th.
We have a lot of good stuff coming out really soon. I am really excited for it all.
I'm really excited for Harry Potter because I'm a big Harry Potter person.
Yeah.
And I really want it to be really good, and it looks really good, and I love Jude Law as Dumbledore.
I agree.
And I love Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander, so I really hope that that's going to be good. Turning Red looks really cute, and I'm so excited for the Batman.
Batman probably want to be one of the best superhero movies of this year.
My most anticipated films right now are obviously Fantastic Beasts, as a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yeah.
But also Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think that's going
As a
to
big
bring a
Wanda
lot to
stan
Marvel.
myself,
Yeah.
as a big Wanda stan, very excited for that. And a little bit more than Batman, but I think both are going to be fantastic in the end. Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode. I'm your host, Miss Sanders, along with Molly and Christian. Tune in next week for another riveting discussion in a world of pop culture. Have a great night, Millersville.